the fourth sign in the zodiac is the sign of Cancer. So Cancer is now the first sign of the next season of summer. And therefore, it is water element. The quality is cardinal. Cardinal, something new begins with an inherent form of insecurity. And it is yin. So in your index card, you might want to write Cancer, Moon, 4th house / IC, Imam Kuli. And underneath, you want to write the element which is water. Then we have cardinal and we have yin. As it is ruled by the moon, and as mentioned in our introduction, the moon is very much a symbol, being a light like the sun, but a receptive light. And the moon takes about 27, 28 days to travel one time through the zodiac. It correlates with a motherly female energy, because it can be slim after new moon like a young woman. It can be full like a pregnant woman. And the time of the 28, 27, 28 days correlates exactly with the natural menstruation cycle of a woman. So therefore, the archetype of Cancer is mother. And here we have the proof, as if someone says like, oh, you don't have any planets in the 7th house, so you will not have relationship, that's bogus, because if you don't have planets in the 4th house, you still had a mother, right? Even if she left you when you were like 2 years old, or if you were adopted, you still had a mother you were given birth to. So the Cancer within itself is the mother. And the mother's job naturally is, of course, to carry and provide safety, nurturing, warmth, emotional safety, not financial safety. But if we're very honest, there's only one form of safety, and that is for us emotional safety. So Cancer within itself and the 4th house correlates with our emotional foundation. The very subjective emotional foundation, not the spiritual one, but the very subjective. As for every little child, the attention of mom is very important. Like in the psychology, it is said by the Freudian kind of like phases, the oral phase, which is from 0 to a second birthday, then the anal phase, like another 1 year, and then the Oedipalic phase, which goes up like from birthday 3 until birthday 6. The very first year, from 0 to the first birthday, within the oral phase, and moon, Cancer in the 4th house, by the way, is very oral. I'm skipping a little bit, but if we would see, for instance, a Cancer on the 2nd house cusp, remember Cancer being like Taurus, the inner resources, the inner needs, and also our sexual needs, then very likely that person has a sexual tendency for oral, cuddling, everything mom does. So the very emotional foundation provided by the mother and by the early childhood family, which is also Cancer. It does not necessarily have to be the own bloodline family, but it shows how the emotional surrounding, how the nurturing family was. Yeah? How the needs, the emotional needs in this case, not the sensual needs, but the emotional needs of the baby, how they were recognized and provided for, or not, or suppressed, or manipulated, or whatever. So how the emotional needs were seen, detected, and provided and nurtured. And that gives the child a sense of safety. And within the first year, the very first 12 months, psychology calls that the primary narcissism, meaning a legitimate emotional need of any given baby, that its needs are seen, recognized, and met and fulfilled. Meaning baby does meh, And the world is obligated, not necessarily the mother, but from the baby's point of view, that does not have an I yet, like an ego yet, someone has to fix the problem. If that is taken care of in a proper, natural, nurturing way, which cancer naturally is able to, if not dysfunctionally disturbed, then the child will have a very safe or a very sound foundation for its emotional safety. And it's most unlikely that a dysfunctional form of narcissism will develop later in year. So the natural primary narcissism is the right of the baby to be seen and nurtured, taken care of, protected, given warmth, shelter, love in the first 12 months. And that very foundation and the later upgrowing, the childhood, the fourth house, Cancer moon, shows the quality of the childhood. And that gives us an emotional imprint, archetype emotional imprint, of how we see ourselves emotionally. What we relate to as safety emotionally, where we feel cozy and well and where we don't feel cozy and well. It is what psychology is very focused on, our imprint, the parental early childhood imprint, which of course also affects the nervous system, the thinking, but here we're talking about the emotional imprint. And out of that emotional imprint, step by step over the Freudian phases, or in other words, until the 7th birthday, plus minus, like 6, 7, which is, by the way, the first Saturn square. Saturn takes not 27, 28 days through the zodiac, but 27, 28 years. And Saturn is the ruler of the opposite sign of Cancer, of Capricorn. So there's a correlation of the ruler of Cancer, which takes 28 days, and Saturn taking 28, 29 years. So 28 divided by 4 would make 7 years. So the 7-year cycles are Saturn squares or Saturn quarters. So basically at around the age of 6, 7, when Saturn, the opposing sign of Cancer, forms its first square 90-degree angle to the natal Saturn in the birth chart, the child begins to become aware of certain things that have to do with Capricorn. It is beginning to mature, but the maturing is an archetype of Capricorn. So basically with those 7-year cycles, which are defined by Saturn, always going one square, like 90 degrees through the zodiac, our emotional self-image is going through the maturing process. Maturing or maturity is archetype of Capricorn. But because the Cancer, 4th house, and the moon has also to do with our emotional body. Like we were talking about the aura layers, or when we were talking about the spheres of the planets, that everything I perceive outside of me from an egocentric point of view, like geocentric, egocentric point of view, the first layer is the emotions. So it's the emotional body. And due to the ruler of time and space, which is Capricorn and which is its ruler Saturn, we go through our emotional ego body, well, we could say, I'll explain it more, through the maturing process. And by that, over time, especially at the first square of Saturn at the age of 6, 7, the ego, the self-image that was imprinted by the family, by the mother, by the whole emotional surrounding. So, like, let's say the mom is very nurturing, but around is like an atmosphere of collective fear. Let's say like before, after a war, that is also the emotional imprint. Yeah? Like my favorite uncle who lives in France, he was born in Berlin in 1945 when Berlin was completely bombed to get Hitler finally out. And you can tell his emotional body, he's a sweet person, but his emotional body is always like walking through a minefield, yeah, always expecting the worst to happen, because that was the kind of like collective. So it's not only the mother, it's the whole, like the tribal imprint, but primarily, the self-image like come from the mother, the nurturing, the family, the very nutritious family, the essence, which is basically because it's the deepest point in a chart, the fourth house. We could say the fourth house are our emotional roots. If you compare it with a plant, like in the garden, in the soil, the roots would be the fourth house cusp. And from there we grow through the maturity towards the midheaven, the 10th house. So therefore the emotional self-image, which is imprinted by the family, creates that emotional self-image, or another word for that could be seen as ego. Now, I do discriminate between, even though I use the word ego, there are two forms of ego in my definition. The one is the ego that comes with a physical incarnation, with a body, by being in the body. And therefore, we do have a point of reference that we call I. I in Latin means ego. So that's the personal ego. And we do need a sense of I to come along with the body in this world. So that's quite natural. The only problem is when we believe that the I, the ego, would be the only thing that makes myself. And myself can be written in either in one word, small letters, myself, or my space, capital S, self. The ego, or as I always say, the ego lens, like a lens in a camera, the ego in everyone's personality and body is basically the way how we perceive life. We can only perceive life around us through our emotional lens, through the lens of the ego, right? And that would be as if the camera, which contains a lens, would say, what the lens would say, I'm the whole camera. But it's not. It is basically the connection to the outer world from an emotional point of view. And that defines a lot of things, like, as I said before, how we feel well, where I feel cozy, how you design your apartment. If you have like a moon in Capricorn, or like me in Virgo, I rather sit on a kind of a stern, like on a Chesterfield sofa. Like leatherish, like not like, there's those sink-in couch, nothing for me. You rather give me a wooden chair and I feel well on it, or on the floor, because, the moon is in Virgo or in an earth sign. There are other signs that just love these fluffy couches and all those kind of things. So all these things are defined by the fourth house, sign of the fourth house cusp. Where's the planetary ruler? Are there eventually planets in there? Meaningful sentences, repeating. Step number 4, where's the natural ruler of the fourth house, which is always the moon? Where's the natural sign, where we do find Cancer, and other eventual planets in it, which is step number 6. Now, to that emotional ego, that lens, and I hope that comes across what I'm trying to say, we need the lens to focus to see the world, but we take the things subjectively. The whole houses from ascendant, first house, second house, third house, fourth house, up to the end of the fifth house, are subjective. It's the one where we build our personality, like a cascade fountain, which in the fifth house, we get to that, will come to that, what we call, that's my personality. And with that emotional imprint, and therefore the ego lens, and that what makes me feel this is my I, my ego, comes also things like habits. Whereas, like emotional habits, like with my moon in Virgo, I have the habit, if I like one dish at a restaurant, I tend, when I go to this restaurant, always to order the same dish. Because my moon in Virgo likes routine, right? So if I would go out with someone who has moon in Gemini, they would try, oh, this is interesting, let's try that. And I just order the same dish. And if I want to eat something else, I go to a different restaurant. So just crazy habits, The emotional habits is like Cancer, moon, fourth house. But the building of habits comes with Virgo. The whole habits, the emotional self-image, the ego, the self-image I have about myself is very interesting because we already learned the ascendant, the first house cusp, every first house is like Aries, is our physical. Now we learn that the Cancer, fourth house cusp and the moon is our emotional self, right? Very often the physical appearance of the physical body, ascendant, sign in the house cusp, yada yada, and the emotional self-image are not necessarily the same or even like conflicting. I mean, if you don't believe that, go to a gym, go to those, right? There's a physical appearance of being like, hunk, and the self-image might be like, I'm so thin, or in women's case, they slimmed down to like, model size, they think they're fat. So the self-image is something different than the physical. So it's all about emotional safety. And as we are born into the duality, and the duality holds two genders, the male and female gender, physically easily to detect. But because Cancer makes a square to the first house, or Cancer to Aries, the physical body, and the physical body can either come in the male or in the female version, that's it, right? There's a natural, via the square, there's a natural correlation to our emotional association in regards to our gender. How well / not well we feel in regards of our gender. And that because we know that Cancer is opposed by the sign of Capricorn, which is also the rules or fashions of a given society in time and space, which is all Capricorn, we will learn that. Every society has their own definition of how masculine is supposed to be and is right, and how feminine is supposed to be right. Every culture, right? So as the moon, the physical body of the moon out in the sky, we can only see one side. The other side is hidden, right? We can make a very clear and astrological correlation that the moon correlates with that what Jung called anima animus. Like I'm in a male body with an Aries rising, so my body is quite masculine in shape. So you see my moon side, the masculine, the animus, but you do not see the anima, the feminine behind it, right? But because the moon has two sides, the fourth house, Cancer, and the moon correlate with anima animus, and therefore they correlate with the emotional, as I said, with the emotional, how do I feel well with my physical sex and gender in regards, opposition to Capricorn, to the social definition and social expectation, how I am expected to be as a man / woman. And that is culturally completely different. Someone in Brazil, a man, will have a different upbringing than like someone in Burma or in Thailand, right? Yeah. But of course, the Brazilian would think this is normal, and the Thailand, this is normal. There's no normal. So the interesting thing is this anima animus, which resides in all of us, because the source, the circle that holds the yin and yang, is anima animus same time, or is non-anima animus. Like in my favorite gospel, which is an apocryphic gospel, like not the accepted ones under Constantine, the Thomas Gospel, which is one of the most brilliant ones, because most of the statements are indeed true. They're said, when the inner becomes the outer, and the outer becomes the inner, when the upper becomes the lower, and the lower becomes the upper, when male is like female, and female is like male, then and only then you enter heaven. Meaning, then you overcome the illusion of duality. But through our incarnations of that part of the soul that believes that it's separate from its own self, in the duality, the soul chooses or is told what kind of outer appearance to choose in the physical form, male or female. And from a point of view of reincarnation, of course, the soul changes or switches genders. I don't want to put a rule on that, but because Cancer and all water signs have to do with emotional safety and also with habits. It is similar as if you would buy, your first car would be a Volkswagen, wagon, and you're quite satisfied with that. So next time you buy a car, you just naturally, deviate to buy another Volkswagen and another one, right? And similarly, the soul, that part that I call soul, not the divine self, the soul, when it gets used to a certain kind of like gender, it has a tendency to reincarnate for quite a while. I mean, quite a while in reincarnation terms can be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah? Especially as long as the soul remains dormant, because most are very dormant. Keep in mind that Adam in the biblical story, after was being quote-unquote kicked out, which is crap, but Adam fell asleep. And Adam in Hebrew does not mean man, like person with a penis. It means human being. So it does not mean a man guy was created in the image of God, but the human being reflects the divine, and the creator God in Hebrew, which is Elohim, which is a male plural word, which would have to be translated correctly as the male and female gods and goddesses in the one consciousness self, created out of their image, Adam, the human, or the only Son of God, the Christ consciousness. But the misinterpretation and mistranslation, due to Hebrew language, has no vowels, no written vowels. There's only consonants. And the vowels were the holy sound of Yehovah. Yehovah, the vowels. So the Hebrew language is like a multi-dimensional, very wise language, because it leaves room to multi-dimensional interpretation, which is probably more of a Gemini thing right now than a Cancer. But it's interesting to mention, because we probably know the Hebrew word Moloch. Like Los Angeles in the 80s, when there was like smog, we said it was a Moloch. In Hebrew, it's written from right to left. M, L, and CH is an extra letter. So you read Nuch. If you put the O's in, then it becomes Moloch, a beast that eats even like children. If you take the O's out and take the E in, then it becomes Melech. And Melech in Hebrew means wise king. So we see that the Bible, the very foundation of our Western civilization, cannot be translated in a Gemini linear way. But it was translated primarily by men in a patriarchal attitude, and therefore this word Elohim, which is a male-female plural entity, was translated as Godfather, the man. And Adam, which is human, male-female, was translated as the buddy, the guy, the dick, right? So from there, we basically, our whole culture, from a metaphysical, cultural, religious point of view, is based just on a big mistake, right? So having said that, the male-female principle, the Elohim, the circle, the eternal. And it's interesting because when you get deep into meditation, like classical meditation, at one point you will start to see in the upper hemisphere of your view, first like a golden round shining thing. And that starts to open at one point, and you see like a flickering light blue light in that, but it's very peaceful. It's flickering, but it's like very calm. And if you hold that, if you're able to hold that longer in a state of thoughtlessness, Pisces, then you will see a shape of, first it looks like a white dove, but then it shapes into a 5-star, a white 5-star, precise in measurement. And in Hinduism and in the old yogi tradition, this is called you enter the Krishna consciousness or Christ consciousness, the Son of God. That is the level where the Adam slash Christ, same thing, could be found. But due to our misinterpretation, that we only look on the yin and yang, the black and white, the either or, very Gemini-ish, and not on the circle, the eternal, that holds that. Like, as if you have like a bowl with water and the water is completely quiet and you see like fantasy shimmering on the water, like what Nostradamus did. When he had his visions, he would look just on water with oil on it, lit by a couple of lights, and look on the surface, which is also a Mexican way of like the shamans there, that you look onto the water, but you don't focus, you go on a trance state focus, and then you get to see little visions, right? So we are basically constantly distracted by the big illusion, by Maya, to look on the big illusion of the appearance of two opposites, duality, individuality, our great new gods. Yeah? We are so individual, means we are confused. We are separate. So instead of like on the one round thing, the eternal. Right? So having said that, the very basis of our self, capital S self, of our space, capital self, is male, female as one. If we want to call that androgynous, or if we want to call it hermaphrodite, it doesn't matter, because in this moment there is no gender. But being incarnated in the dream of the world of duality, there is the need to either have a male body or a female body in that big illusion. And now it comes to, relative to what I said, my appearance is a masculine one, so you see my animus, but the anima is not overtly to be seen. So a soul incarnates for quite a while by habit in similar gender, let's say female, and goes through cultural epochs, right? If the soul would like first incarnate in ancient Turkey, like the area in Greece where the Amazons, not the book thing, but the real Amazons, very strong, very independent women would incarnate. And then afterwards in southern Egypt, where northern Egypt was pharaoh land, but simultaneously in southern Egypt was a female pharaoh kingdom, or queendom would be the better word, right? So if the soul would experience a lot of like female incarnations in non-patriarchal cultures, African cultures, Tibetan cultures, those kind of cultures, where the woman is seen as like the representative of life, right? Or more as a goddess than the penis man, then, the soul would like get used to that in a very strong way. And now imagine she would start to incarnate in the Roman Empire when the Christianity started, then in the medieval times, with the witch persecution and those kind of things. So we would have like at one point traumatizing experiences in the female/emotional body, right? And if, let's say, the soul would still incarnate in a female body, in our time now, she might have, coming from unresolved issues from previous lives, gender associations relative to her inner feminine, which are still burdened with unresolved trauma by forms of dysfunctional persecution. That's one way. So you see, cancer is really important. The other thing is, at one point, you need to switch from Volkswagen to another kind of brand, right? I mean, the other brand, the whatever, the Jeep, not to say Mercedes. So basically, within the fourth house, from an evolutionary point of view, you're even able to detect if a soul is preparing to switch gender in this life. Preparing to switch gender means I am going through that balsamic phase. Remember with the aspects, the balsamic phase? That now I'm kind of like bringing a whole cycle, how long that cycle might be, to closure. To prepare for something new. The new moon, like the moon before the new moon, like diving itself into the sun to be reborn. The balsamic phase, the Buddha phase. The rain comes, rains, goes. We smile. So, I might mention how you see that. And you can also see if like the soul is had a gender switch. But you see that where I'm talking at right now, the level is like you see that from an emotional point of view, not necessarily the physical one. Because there could be the case, let's say someone had incarnated a long time in a female body, made all these experiences with or without trauma. And suddenly there is a brand switch, and that soul finds itself suddenly in the male body. So we would see the male body incarnation as being brand new, but the emotional body, Cancer, 4th house, Moon, still having the habit of feeling feminine, acting out habits of previous feminine attitudes. Make sense? That would be some people that say, I'm wrong, I'm born in the wrong body, right? Or some people, like in my generation, if they have that, they would then, if they compare themselves with a very patriarchal society like Germany or United States, but they have the emotional body of previous incarnation, many previous incarnations of being female, they cannot, in comparison, Cancer to Capricorn is 180 degree, which is an opposition, or like Aries to Libra comparison. If I compare myself to the others, I find myself in my emotional self-image, Moon, that I'm not what others define as male or female. So if I'm not what the society, Capricorn, expects me to be regarding to my physical gender, I must be wrong. Then guilt might kick in, or I might be different. And when a society opens up since the 70s, since the hippie movement, to allow homosexuality or bisexuality to be not as persecuted as it was like for centuries, then they might come to the conclusion, oh, I must be gay. But that's not necessarily the fact. They're just emotionally not relating to the social expectation of how a man or a woman should be. Makes sense? Because, so we get total new levels, right? So that's one way to see it. Sometimes at one point, so usually we could say, this is very, very simple, not even completely true. Let's say a soul incarnates for a long time in the same gender. So it is like emphasizing either the yin or the yang inside. And by social conditioning, especially in patriarchal societies, the soul would now not be asked or be expected or not even be allowed to live that hidden side of the moon. Like, let's say, many incarnations in a female body, she's not allowed or requested or not giving room to live the yang side, the masculine side. So therefore, she needs to project that onto the outer world, Libra, right? And then she's the pretty, pretty girl and has a strong man who rescues her, right? Then we have the traditional relationship archetypes that our society loves or loved until the 70s. He goes hunting and she cleans the kitchen, right? And he does all the paperwork and she does the brownies, right? And when he dies, because priest has said, you have to stay together until death parts you, something like that, or divorces you. His only escapism is to die, right? So he's gonna bite the dust, And suddenly her, having been in a codependent, gender-defined, socially accepted, gender role relationship, she's now completely helpless because she doesn't even know what a file is, nor to find the insurance companies, the bank accounts, etc., right? So that is a very typical archetype when we do not embrace our inherent but not visible other anima or anima side. Thank God our societies have slowly evolved away from that quite idiotic attitude, which I must say, it does have some beauty to it, right? But if it is enforced, that's where the pain is. Yeah? I was recently talking with a woman from Saudi Arabia, and she was one of 3 wives of her husband, right? And she was radiant. She was completely radiant. So I asked her, me as a Westerner, may I just ask you, wouldn't you prefer to also have the ability or the permission to go to work? And she was like, oh, like, you know, like, just like, how dare you? My nature is to bloom in beauty, in radiance, right? I enjoy that. I don't have to worry about anything. I love my man because I am love. And he enjoys when he comes home my beauty. We have the dance of aesthetic, of charm, of those kind of things. I mean, a very legitimate point of view that we Westerners have quite forgotten, right? Our Western lady, no, by the way, a very good book if you like provocative literature, is the book Submission by Michel, what's his name? Michel, I'll get to that. He's a French author. Houellebecq. It's spelled Houllerque something. Submission. He paints a picture in this thing about the modern liberated woman, yeah, and liberated man, where we have created a lack of polarization between the genders. And like in physics, if you have two poles that have no plus minus tension, I don't mean that in a judgmental way, if there's no polarization, there's no energy flowing. It's neutralized. And that's what we have in our societies. We have quite a neutralized, in the Greek philosophy there was a god, his name was Eros. Eros. The name erotic comes from that. Erotic is not like those kind of things. Erotic can be cooking, can be like, you know, wearing nice clothes, you know, perfumes, all those things that make the senses go, you know. We have kind of like banished that with our oh so liberal, co-equal, which is not even true, kind of like gender attitude since the hippie movement. And going from the history, the hippie movement, you see Cancer is like a long part. The hippie movement was basically before he was the hunter and she was the cleaning lady, right? Then suddenly there was like make love, not war, yeah, and all those kind of like things. But by the way, when Uranus, the planet Uranus, was transiting Libra. Libra is the relationships. Libra makes, like Aries, a square to Capricorn and to Cancer. So there was among the relationships a rebellion, a liberation, Aquarius, from the gender roles in any society, right? Like three ways, you know, all those kind of things. And of course, there was also the Marijuana, you know, while Neptune was transiting the Scorpio thing, like my generation. And later on, even like through, not Scorpio, sorry, through Sagittarius. Yeah? So it was all this like feel free kind of thing. So basically the bottled up man being like the little like, you know, kind of thing, you know, suddenly had a hoodie and suddenly experienced something that was absolutely forbidden for the oh-so penis Adam. He had feelings. He had sensation. Ooh. So he suddenly was diving into the feminine Cancer thing that he was not allowed to, because similar like to my example for the codependent thing, the man was expected to not have feelings. That's what the woman is for, right? Oh, if she's crying, oh, she's a woman, like that, right? So he had the hoodie, got all like softened and like goofy, and she took the chance, oh, my guy is high, so I'm going to start a business. So that's the short version of the hippie time. So basically, you know, from that time in all societies, we saw that women started to quote unquote liberate themselves, right? Even like all the movements, the women's movement, the environmental movement, the same sex, like gay and lesbian movement, that were all born during Uranus, going through Libra. And interestingly enough, sorry, I'm really deviating away from the subject. Interestingly enough, now that we're like filming this in 2017, Uranus is now in the sky in Aries. So it is opposing that what was seated and born during the hippie movement, women's rights, environmental issues right, gay lesbian rights, yeah, all those things. So right now it is getting the most opposition in Aries. No, we're the man, da 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 da, right? So it's really interesting to see how, I mean, the United States has just elected like someone that they call now president, how all those issues which are a sign of like liberating from like clear polarization, are right now put more or less on jeopardy, if they will survive, if gay marriage will survive, if women's rights will survive, those kind of things. I find that really interesting. The last time that Uranus was in Aries was when the Hitler Empire, and not only that, but also like, it was not, it was Hitler, but at the same time in France, in England, there was this kind of like, there was also this like birth to national pride, right? Hitler just pushed it a little bit too far. A little bit too much, too far, right? But we have the same energy right now. It's just 84 years later, because Uranus takes exactly 84 years through the zodiac. So I find that really interesting, right? And by the way, Uranus entered Aries, the sign of Aries, which is the new beginning, the same night, pure coincidence, of course, when we had the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami and the uranium and plutonium, poisoning the whole country. So it's really, really interesting. By the way, Pluto entered Capricorn the same month when the Lehman Brothers crashed and the whole banking crisis, economy crisis, state bank crisis started that we're still dealing with, and we're not done with that. So anyway, sorry, deviated away. But it's just interesting to see by those cycles, what happens. So going back to the male-female gender. And here, what I want to mention is, I want to refer to a philosopher, an American philosopher who I really adore and admire. His name is David Deida, D-E-A-D-A, Deida. As far as I know, he lived for quite a while with Navajo natives or Indians, and he learned a great deal about the core feminine and the core masculine. Just another word for yin-yang or for anima animus. And I love his description, because you can go through life and just see how it works. He says the core feminine, i.e. anima, is like the islands of Hawaii. It's self-sustaining. It doesn't need anything nor anyone. You don't need to import anything on Hawaii to have a very good life. It is lush. It is radiant. It's not linear, but it's like in circles. I know you love Hawaii, so sorry like to bring that up. It's just an image, right? It's not a sign that you need to move there. And like when you leave the aircraft, from on a Hawaiian island, you basically want to lick down the railing because you're already in such a lush, I would say erotic mood, not like fucky, but it's just it's just like everything is just so aloha, right? Right? Time, manana, right? You do like aloha in this direction, So the feminine within itself, the core feminine, does not need a linear kind of outline, right? And it is about relationship. I don't mean like girlfriend, boyfriend, but about relating to the surrounding, to go in a meaningful, nurturing, motherly, sensual, aloha-ish relationship with anything around me, be it this bay of Hawaii or this way. Aloha to the left, aloha to the right. If I don't do it today, I might do it tomorrow. Who cares? I'm already Hawaii. Right? That's the core feminine. But Hawaii, once a day there's a tropical thunderstorm out of the blue for no reason, which most men do not understand. When there's this, what we would call the bitchy 5 minutes. And Hawaii is a volcano island. So there are eruptions at any time possible, right? That's the best definition I ever heard of the feminine. The opposite of that in the duality, David Deida compares with New York City. The island of Manhattan, or the peninsula of Manhattan, basically looks like a penis, right? And until we had the World Trade Center, the penis had even 2 balls, international balls. They were cut off now. Sorry for being so graphic, but that's true. It's true. Which was one of the reasons why probably those people who planned the attack, used those symbols because that was from a region where symbols are very important, right? Anyway, so Manhattan has like a chessboard kind of like Excel list kind of like organization of the avenues and the streets, right? 54th West, da 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 da. Yeah, it's not Hawaii-ish. It is Excel list kind of like very logistic. And in between we have those buildings, the skyscrapers or high-rise buildings that have more or less like the shape of a penis too. And New York, i.e. the masculine, the core masculine, is driven by a very high energy that wants to be let out. So a typical masculine wakes up in the morning and goes, oh yeah, let's do something. Yeah? Or in Germany was a song that said like, where a guy sings to his girlfriend, and he sings, let me first rescue the world and afterwards I be with you. Yeah? It was a really good song. Yeah? It's interesting because for a person that has a stronger masculine, not physically but emotionally, the highest priority is to have a mission, a goal. And wisely would be if that mission comes from the heart. The mission can be fatherhood. The mission can be a nurse. It doesn't matter, yeah? But it has to come from here. Because that full heart wants to give its God-given gift to the world in a, sorry for the word, to ejaculate every day again to the world. To then come home and say, ah. And the second priority is relationship. Whereas for the Hawaii, highest priority is relationships, plural. The relationships can be with a little like chocolate on your cappuccino and you go like, oh, that's so sweet, right? The New Yorker was like, well, I don't need that, don't have time, give me coffee, right? Do you see the difference? And if a feminine, meaning like a woman with a stronger anima in her erotic, emotional body, like a Hawaiianish woman or person, can be a man, doesn't matter, it has nothing to do with the physical body. If a Hawaiianish person is naturally attracted to a New Yorkerish person, energy-wise, right? And the Hawaiianish being the source of life, New York needs to import everything. New York is completely dependent. It's top dog, but it's still completely dependent. Hawaii is not, right? The feminine, the Hawaiian sides, has, next to many other functions, one function to constantly test the masculine, right? If the masculine is at its best energetic level, right? And that includes having a mission. So if like Mrs. Hawaii would have like a Humpty Dumpty, oh, it's all good, yeah, I'm gonna take a job, I'm gonna do insurance company, there's no, it's not there, right? So she will kind of like have to switch from Hawaii drive to four-wheel drive. Because the feminine does have like the ability, to switch onto the masculine because naturally they need, because males so often fail, right? But what I'm trying to say is like, if that Hawaiianish person would have a New Yorkerish person that says, honey, let me go out, let me do that job, let me conquer the world and make a better place. And afterwards I come to you. She would be like, right? But now there comes the test. She would tend to say, oh, don't you want to stay? Our favorite show is on and I baked a cake and all that. And ooh, mer for the masculine. Because we believe the words literally, right? Right? So, like, Germans have quite a problem right now, I think, more so than any other kind of countries in Europe, because they're still like, I don't know, maybe because of the Second World War, maybe because afterwards they were so like, so a good German guy in our times right now would say, you know what, honey, let me skip my conference call and watch the show with you. Right? That, oh, don't you want to stay and watch the show, is a test if he stays on track, if he goes with his balls for his goal, because then he is like hot, right? If he would go like, okay, honey, I don't want you to be sad, lost. I mean, he sits on the couch, waits for the show, and she's preparing the volcano eruption in the kitchen. And he will not have a clue why. And the words she will like machine gun Kalashnikov out there, he will try to get the information like in New York terms excellence and go like, what is he talking about? What is she talking about? But it's not about what she's saying. Right? Not that women, it's just about the tone of voice. It's the if the tone of voice is that high, you fucked up, Mr. New York. That's it. It can't be you didn't bring the trash down. You go like, well, I brought the trash down. It's not about the trash, right? So that's what most men do not know. So we see just by having fun with that, the polarization of these two anima animus are really important. Now, of course, if there is a very feminine personality, like her Hawaiian issue is more emphasized, then it's more natural that she needs a New Yorkerish compatible for the energy to flow. And then they have eroticism, and it's not about sex. Sex is one of the most unimportant things in the world. It's about eroticism, right? But there are some other people, or if it's not given, then we have a neutralized relationship. Our societies, since the hippie time, since the woman sneaked out and did business, this is a little judgmental what I'm saying, my perception is the women liberated themselves, but more so to the extent to become substitute masculine entities. Meaning they might do career, but they do it in a New York way. Because the whole world right now is still dominated by male efficiency. Like New Yorkers walk so fast because they think if I walk fast, I might get the subway faster, I might be faster at Barney's, then I get the flowers faster, and then I'm faster on the couch and can finally do, right? But that does not work because New York never sleeps. Like, I'm very New Yorkerish, especially like when I'm teaching, because I feel all this thing. Yeah, that's what you picked up this morning, that my energy was different. It's just like, boom, let's get it done in a New York way. So when I do all my emails, and I have like 80 emails responding, this feeling we men love to be empty after right? So then I think, even though I'm quite smart, I think, never have to get emails again. And I'm laying on the couch in the favorite position a man, after having done his job, is this. Like remote, like done, like half death, right? So if we watch TV, we are not watching TV. We are pretending to watch TV because we have something that talks to us without questions. We do not have to respond. Yeah, we have social noise without having to be in any form interactive. And we have our substitute penis in the hand. We have the power. That's it. Perfect. And a couple of hours watching TV, you're sucked empty. I mean, this is really very pleasant for the masculine. Sorry for being so graphic, but So if you walk in, honey, what are you watching? Or you sit next to it, oh, look at her hair. Oh, didn't we say, we go like, we don't want Hawaiian interaction. We rescued the world, right? But without the feminine, the masculine would be just a desert of cement, like New York, right? So the ideal thing would be if, what I said about the Saudi Arabian client of mine, if the man rescues the world, he does the business with whatever he does. And he would come home and there's Mrs. Hawaii. Yeah? That's the only thing that triggers the masculine to, like every New Yorker dreams to go on vacation on Hawaii, right? And if you ask him, oh yeah, I'm planning to, they never go. Because there's always another email that they need to respond to. Like me, when I've done the emails, I hear the responses, bling, bling, and I go, oh, they respond. I thought I'm done. Like when you see the masculine on the desk doing like paperwork, and you walk by and like, would you like to have a cup of coffee or tea? He will not hear you because he's all focused. Let's get it done, 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 done. The only goal is done, not the process of doing it. Make sense? Yeah, it's the efficiency, but not the sensuality. Whereas if Mrs. Hawaii would do like some paperwork, she would see like a receipt from the doctor. Oh, didn't he marry last week? Oh, let me call him. Yeah. But then she dials the wrong number because something got screwed up on Hawaii. And now she has said, oh, Sally, how are you? Oh, yeah, let's come over. And she does aloha he through all the little bays of New York, of Hawaii. Not necessarily getting anything completely done, but does not care about that either. She's just radiant, right? So I wanted to build this in. Yeah? So this whole energetic flow of energy via polarization is really important. Like we have that in classical ballroom dance, right? When the man goes up and invites the woman, come on, yeah, because the Hawaii loves is the man is in charge to lead. But in some feministic ears, that leadership is misinterpreted or misheard as suppression. But leading someone is coming from the heart. So if a masculine person has found his purpose, his mission, whatever that is. Do you know Momo, the book Momo from Michael Ende? Oh, you should read it. It's one of the most social critical, you would love that. Oh, Anyway, there's the street cleaner Beppo, and he's always happy. So Momo, the little girl, asks him, why are you happy? And he's like, because every day my job is to clean the street for all my neighbors. So he is in his mission, even though this mission does not have a higher status, right? But on the other hand, we know a lot of people that have higher status in our society, and you can see they're not in their mission, right? So they try to overcompensate with more money, more fame, those kind of things. Yeah? So Beppo was the happy one, right? A happy man is a man who follows his heart and has a mission, no matter what the mission is. And that makes him utterly attractive to a natural feminine Hawaiian girl, right? So, I guess I said everything about that. Oh, except that the masculine, the New Yorker, has the idiotic idea that if I do things quickly with this kind of thing, afterwards I have more time of right? We don't. So the ideal situation would be that he comes home, like the masculine, not the man necessarily, but the one with the Hawaiian, with the New York energy, comes home and there's aloha hey, and not like, take your shoes off, I was cleaning the floor. If that is the sound, you as a man should know, it's not about the floor, she lacks of erotic sweetness, polarization, right? So dancing, or if she has her 5 minutes of like thunderstorm, Hawaiian thunderstorm, you didn't bring the trash down. The sound is me, 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 me. That means, translated in the male language, the tank is almost empty, right? And please fill me up, be my hero. So if he goes like, well, I did bring the trash down, you're always complaining, da-da-da-da, you lose. You completely lose, right? But if you would go like, no, I forgot the trash, dum, 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 let me atone, and then I give you a kiss. Humor coming from the heart. Can you see how you react to women? Yeah? Humor coming from the heart with a sensual interaction wins. Trash forgotten. Most men don't know that. They are afraid of this, that Hawaii does the snip snip kind of thing. Yeah? So they retire with their substitute penis and watch TV, which makes the feminine bitter and explode more often, and that's what we have. And then we need like psychologists and Prozac. Prozac helps. Oh, Prozac is a good thing. So, just a little idea about how these things work. Well, another interesting thing is, of course, going back to evolutionary astrology, I just wanted to build that in. The reason why I did is not only in family constellation or in family therapy or couple therapy, but also when you do readings. You can build in the Hawaii, New York stories. You can dwell on that, get the books from David Data. Yeah? One great book, even for women to read, is the book, The Way of the Superior Man. It is amazing. This guy is brilliant. But from an evolutionary point of view, of course, the soul incarnates by habit for quite a long time in a same gender. And then there comes the time, the necessity to embrace or rediscover that what has been denied or projected outward onto the other gender. And there comes often the first gender switch. The first gender switch. And that brings great irritation in the soul, not only in the emotional body, Cancer, but deep in the soul. Because not only on a hormone level, but if you're used to having been a cowboy for like many, many lifetimes, and suddenly you're like, I should do this, it does not work, right? So that can very often bring like gender switch irritations in a dysfunctional way. In my book and in many other things, there's more detail how you can detect that. That would get too deep into the detail. But generally speaking, if you see the nodes of the moon are not planets, but they're the intersection of the ecliptic and the lunar orb, where they meet, ding, 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 opposite points. One is going south, one is going north of the ecliptic. These 2 points, which are always in opposition, they're shown as like little symbols, like a U, either upside down, normal or upside down. These two, which by the way take exactly 18 years through the zodiac, which is 1.5 years through the sign, if the indicators for gender issues, I don't say gender switch, but gender issues on a soul's journey in any given chart are when you have the following given. And I must say, one symbol alone is not enough. If I show you one egg in the kitchen, you will not be able to detect what I will cook. But if you have more than one found, then the issue needs to be emphasized in your chart analysis. That is, if Pluto, the symbol for the soul, is either in Cancer or Capricorn, or 4th, 10th, like 4th house or 10th house. Pluto, Cancer, Capricorn, or 4th, 10th. And or if the nodes, which are always opposing, are either in Cancer, Capricorn, or 4th, 10th. 4th house, 10th house. Or the moon and or Cancer, the moon and or Saturn being located in Cancer, Capricorn, or 4th, 10th house. Or one or both rulers of the nodes. That means if you have the nodes in Sagittarius, Gemini, the rulers would be, ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, ruler of Gemini is Mercury. If one or both rulers of the nodes are located in Cancer, Capricorn, and or 4th, 10th house. Or if they form a T-square to the nodal axis, which is a right angle to the north node and south node. So if that Jupiter, ruler of the south node, would be in a T-square, and the nodes would be in 410, it has to be in 410, otherwise it's not, then this would be an indicator. Or if the moon and or Saturn are forming a T-square to the nodal axis. In my book, it's described again, just to have an idea. So what sometimes can happen, let's say a soul incarnated in the same gender for quite a while, got the habit, now there's the evolutionary necessity to switch gender, and Mr. Cowboy finds himself suddenly in like an upper class English family and having to do, yes ma'am, right? So, difficult. And at one, like hormone problems, yeah, blah, 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 in our times eventually would go like, no, I'm a lesbian, I don't want to do, whatever. And but then the soul gets used to the other gender, and what then happens over time, the soul begins to switch. Male, female, female, male, male, female, male, female, female, male, male, female, female, male, male, female, until it becomes the one. A complete blend of male, female, a complete balance. Make sense what I'm saying? So those kind of like the natives, the Northern American natives, call those the blended ones. And I love that expression. They have blended the male and the female, the New York and the Hawaii. They can do business like, okay, let me just push this business. Get out of my way, New York. And simultaneously and or afterwards as a balance to do aloha hey. These are in native tribes, not only Northern America, but almost all over the world, the natural healers, the natural inventors, social inventors, yeah? The natural sweet rebels. Because they have access to the male, female, or to the fire and water, as like in Mozart's magic flute. There's an initiation that is, the water and fire initiation. When you bring these two together, remember I said like the fire would be the triangle going upwards and the water goes downwards. That can correlate either to the triangle of the woman or the triangle of an erected penis. When you put the triangle going upwards and the one down together, you have the Star of David. Then you have the perfect balance. Every soul will go through that phase. Because otherwise it will not remember that it has always been one with God. And God is male, female. Every soul. So it's very interesting that those souls who are still very attached to the one gender, hey, I'm a man, like, right? Hey, you faggot, right? The judgments that are coming, judgment is also Capricorn, a dysfunctional way, but it's Capricorn, right? So basically, there were cultures that have embraced that balance much more than our also civilized Western culture. For instance, if you go to the Polynesian islands, areas that were not Americanized yet, it is completely normal that men are together. And it's not about sex. It's about the balance of energies. Yeah? When I was in Burma, I had like a friend assigned there who should watch me. It was important for him that we walk hand in hand through Burma. Well, that took a while for me as a Westerner, an older Westerner, to walk with a younger Asian boy hand in hand through the streets. Judgments, right? So that whole anima-animus thing over the incarnations is nothing else than to heal the apparent polarization, the split within, to unite, as I just quoted about the Thomas Gospel, when male is like female and female is like male. Then you enter heaven. Because then you're whole again. Then your mind, the upper mind, the higher mind is healed. So these are really important issues about Cancer, which of course apply also for the sign Capricorn. But not so much as Cancer, because Cancer is our emotional safety, is our emotional self-image.
Free your mind.
Remember times without time.
Free your